I just like looking at that stuff and getting somebody else's viewpoint. Certainly, there's a lot of stuff in there that I agree with. I thought the article was good. I think I too think cheating is a bad term. I mean, it has a negative connotation, just like Darryl said in the article. I think, I've always sort of talked about risk management. And I think he had alluded to some of that stuff in the video about, where the risk is going to happen, and, the time of the game and the score and all that sort of stuff, I think is important things to help your players know and understand what to do in various situations. But what I like, I don't think, and Tim and I have talked about this a lot, that there's not a lot of black and white, well, there is black and white in hockey, but there is a lot of gray area. And I think as coaches, the more we can do, the more we can help our players to deal with the gray area in terms of decision making, in terms of managing the risk, I think really makes them better players. And I think that's part of developing that, what we call hockey IQ or hockey sense or whatever it is that you want to call it. So I think manufacturing those situations for players in practices is just hugely important. Anyway, I've kind of rambled on. I don't even remember whether I answered your question or not, Wally, but those are some of my observations.
Well, Darryl was joined.
Oh, good.
And Kim, you're on. I think everybody that's on has had a chance to look at the video and read the article, and we've been talking a bit about it. Barry Midori is on from Hockey Alberta, and Barry, for your sake, can you repeat what you said, and then we'll just go back so that Tim's on here. And Sammy, you said you've looked at the video with Ella or your daughter?
No, I've seen the video where she is explaining everything in the drills. I've seen that one, and I've actually watched Ella play twice now.
Okay.
In person, so that's exciting. But I don't know what article you guys are referring to, so I was wondering if somebody could either send me a link or I could just Google search it.
Well, I sent it to you with the video of Darryl's voiceover during about 5 shifts, I think. If you didn't get it, I'll resend it to you. But I think if you've listened to the other one, it's really good because you can hear her thinking because she's describing what's happening, and that's better, I think, than Darryl explaining what she's doing and rationalizing the decision making. But Barry, can you kicked it off, and Darryl managed to get on. Would you just repeat your comments, please?
Geez, that was 2 minutes ago. I don't remember what I said 30 seconds ago, Wally. No.
You're not as old as me.
Catching you. No, I just said I really like the slant, Darryl, that you've taken with it and your verbiage. I think you're really correct when you talk about that. You hear the word cheating, but one of the things, and again, working with coaches that I work with, whether it's at a branch level or even the younger ones, the hardest part is getting them to recognize and understand that you can actually teach thinking the game. And to me, that's the ticket here, is like, I think most of us on this call would all buy into what you're talking about and the importance of it. But that's a whole lot of years, because most of these guys, even to make a drill, it's hard for them, let alone to start to think of all the little things that go inside of it to go into a game. So that connection or linking piece, or it's called leafing now, I think is a new term. It's very difficult for coaches. So it's one where it's almost got to be a step-by-step process where you show them, and then it's going to take time for them to experiment in it. Some of it could come from doing it in clinics. So that was when I was looking at it this morning. It's like, hey, that's maybe something to add down the road to it.
Good. Kim, Darryl and I talked at length yesterday, and I really wanted to ask you if you were on, because you're doing what Barry's doing with your association. And I think we all agree with the concept of Darryl, what Darryl's doing, but how do you do it? How do you deliver, and how do you get coaches to begin to implement some more free thinking on the player's part and educate this decision making, develop decision making? Kim, can you speak, please?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Well, I thought one thing that stood out to me just in Darryl's explanation of it was the concept of having like rules, right? Like, and I don't mean rules in like hard and fast, but there's one particular clip where you said, you know, there's sort of that 3-man unit working down low that are relatively interchangeable, right? The 2Ds in the center, and that, you know, they're not even really in a specific position. So that, you know, as long as, you know, it could be depending on your level of risk reward or your risk tolerance, right? We've got to have, you know, 2 below the puck, and 2 of you 3 have to be below the puck. So you're not even saying it has to be a D or it has to be a center. And I think rules like that, and that might not be the right term, I think that's the key. So it's less this specific situation, right? So, you know, Darryl uses all the terms in the video, right? Getting above the puck, right? You know, those types of things, you know, getting, I would say, you know, we get 5 back before they get 5 back, or those general concepts, I think, are the key there. Because I think, to everyone's point, if you went and dissected the video to the extent that Darryl did, you know, a lot of minor hockey coaches' brains might explode. But if you said, you know, our center and our 2Ds work as a 3-man unit, 3-player unit, right? And that when we're breaking out, one of them has to activate or 2 of them have to activate. Again, you decide what that tolerance is. But then again, with the girls, if you draw it on the board and say you had to stand here, they're just going to stand there. And I find the general rules or conditions are more freeing for them. And then it facilitates that Socratic method of asking, okay, you know, what did you see there? Or why did you make that decision? You know, so I think it spurs on the creativity. So in watching the video, it was less the specifics of the play and more those general concepts that I think are the key. That players understand that verbiage and that associations start to use it between teams. It's not just one coach doing it, right? It's the whole coach talking about getting above the puck, right? Being above your player. Like every U9 player can understand how to be above their player. Like that is not an elite, quote unquote, or a older player concept, right? It looks very different when Ella does it than when a U9 player does it. It's the exact same thing. And so that's where I think is like the magic of it is actually it's more making it more simple. And Darryl's clips are perfect examples of all those things, right? But you could probably take a U11 game and find very similar examples because actually in U11, they really don't know what they're doing a lot of the time. And they're like forechecking with 5, right? Like there's actually better examples probably where players haven't been overly structured. And you're probably seeing stuff where like, you know, a more experienced coach might go, oh, that was really bad. We had 4 forechecking. But could we spin it around and say, oh, actually, you know, we were in the right position, or this is, you know, being a little more open-ended at younger ages versus structured, I think is where you begin it, as opposed to beginning it with players like Ella or at the level. You know, I found coaching junior for 7 years and really, you know, that age group for 14 years, you try to get them to be creative and they're so used to being overly structured. So you're trying to break 12 years of not bad habits, but just rigidity. So I think you have to flip it to the youngest age groups and go to conceptual hockey. And then, you know, I think you see a lot more players playing like the way Ella was there, or, you know, where her teammates have been coached that way. So yeah, that was my thoughts on it.
Kim, I just wanted to reiterate, when I worked in Cochrane 3-4 years ago, we basically implemented the strategy of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interchanging positions. And I put together video of Ryan's games of his Atom team. They were scissoring, they were interchanging positions as good as anybody I've seen at any level. And when I shared the video with some pretty knowledgeable hockey people, they really didn't, I think, understand that they were doing that instinctively. at that young age. So I really appreciate you bringing that point up. And Darryl, I think that's the issue. The way we've coached all our lives and the way kids are coached today is beginning to change. And so, Darryl, I just wonder if you've got any comments on what's been said so far, and anybody else, please hold your hand up. And
Well, let me just take it back a step. So the purpose of the whole thing, it was to illustrate, was to create an illustrative with a question, which is what I often do in the context of this membership that we have going on. We have a community of people. Most of them are coaches. They coach at all different levels. So I feel a sense of responsibility to offer situations like this, and I often use Ella as my guinea pig to show or illustrate different things and then pose a question. So in this context, the backstory on it is, if you had a kid doing that, and that's one single game, so it's one game of her playing, how would you coach her? What would you say? And if we're going to use terms like cheating, which have no positive frame of mind, and particularly when you're speaking with girls, I find that particular word is even more of a bad word for them. It creates a lot of negative connotations to it. There's really no positive way of spinning in any way. So if you were to pull her aside and say, hey, like, what are you trying to do here? Feel like you're cheating for offense. She's not listening anymore. As soon as you say cheat, she's now internalizing the idea that she's cheating the game in some way, cheating her teammates in some way, doing something wrong. So that immediately is going to put her in a more of a turtle shell. And is that really what your objective is? Is your objective to stunt or to diminish or to reduce these reads? Right now, Ella plays pretty free flowing. She's reading the game. She's reacting based on exactly what you're talking about, Kim, a set of principles. These are principles in which she's adhering to. And she does it the same way throughout the entire game, because there's really no need for too much in the way of considerations. So what I posed to the group was, if you were going to coach her, and we could all agree that using terminology like cheating, which you could say even in the NHL, I don't even know how much cheating is like really going on there. I don't know how many players are really like actively cheating the game and, you know, actively just disregarding to be on the offensive side of the puck. It just doesn't happen. It's just not. There are players who take risks. They read a play and then something happens and they find themselves in bad spots, but just actively disregarding. I mean, we're pretty far down the track now. That just isn't happening as much, or to the degree where you could just accuse someone of doing that. I just don't know that that's as relevant as perhaps it once was, where there was a complete disregard for defense. So I think that we have to evolve our terminology, because I just don't think that that's something that's happening very often. And then if you're coaching impressionable kids, how would you approach it? So let's say your barometer for risk is not one that is overly tolerant for her making those reads at those. And I purposely put the time of the game, the score, who she's playing against. I put all that in there for as much context as I could, because I know someone's going to say, hey, listen, like some of this kind of like, yeah, it didn't hurt us. Yeah, she probably is not playing with, like, she's not too, like, not egregious, but maybe at a certain time or against a certain player, she might fall on the side of more conservative. So if that's the case, how do you approach that? Like, what are you saying to her? How are you going to continue to encourage those reads? I would argue, maybe because it's my own kid, I would argue there's a lot of elite reads in there. A lot of elite reads that don't happen in female hockey anywhere, any level, including the best we have. They have those reads, they can see it, but they don't have the same level of freedom that Ella has to be able to do it consistently for a myriad of reasons. So I'm saying she's an impressionable age, young age, has been in this bracket for quite a while. And my objective in being supported by her coach is something that we are trying to foster these reads as much as possible. And sometimes she finds herself on the wrong side, and sometimes, she goes too quickly or she reads it too fast and gets too far ahead. That to me is the coaching part of it. And then understanding, like, when you use strong verbiage, like the one that I was talking about, what you run the risk of is that the player then they sit too far on the defensive side. Like, do we really want every player to always be on the defensive side of the puck? That's absurd. If you have every player on the defensive side of the puck, your team and that player is going to suck. They're just not going to be very good. The whole idea of being good is understanding how to read and manage those risks and run the calculations quickly in your mind, see the context of the play, and be able to adhere to certain principles at certain times. That to me was the context, just to give you an overview of what it is what I was trying to get to. And then at the end of this month, that community that I have is going to then talk about this at length. And we're going to go through it just the same way that we're going through it now. How do you coach this kid? What do you do? What are your thoughts? Do you think these are elite reads? Do you not think they're elite reads? Do you think it's appropriate? One of the things that Ella, it's when she talks to you, she will say, and she said it in the video that we were talking about before, where she goes through with Wally and he's asking her questions and she's articulating her thoughts in the shift. There are times that she says, I believe in my skating. I trust my skating. So she feels like she has a little more of a buffer or a window because of time. So those are all factors to weigh into how you coach that kid, how she thinks, what her assets are, what's her recoverability, what's the time of the game. So I'm of the opinion, and why I put these things out there to my community and then now to your community, and now it'll go wherever, is to just raise these questions of, like, we want offense and we want kids to play and learn to read the game offensively, and particularly in the women's game where not a lot of them are reading. And I don't know if we've sucked it out of them. And I want to find different ways to raise the issue and say, okay, if we want offense, maybe there's a way in which we can coach them different. And I can assure you, perhaps taking a look at some of these, like, really, I don't know the word for it, but like the verbiage that we use is really important. And I'm a big vocabulary guy. I think the words you use is really important, and how you phrase it. It's not often what you say, it's how you say it. The tone, the connotations that surround the phrasing in which you use. For a lot of players, and I'm going to say not non-gender, the way in which you say it and the verb you use, the connotation that surrounds that verbiage, to you might be, something like, well, you're cheating, you hear you're cheating the game and you're trying to use a verbiage that's strong to get them to make better decisions, when in fact you could throw them in a turtle shell and then they just don't make those reads at all. Like in that league, PWHL, it's the top junior league in Canada. There are kids that will not pass the puck in front of their own net. They will not do it. for any, there's nobody there. There's not a threat anywhere. Their team could be on a line change. They will go around the net. They will not pass it in front of their own net within 20, 25 feet of the net. It won't happen. Well, why is that? Is that because this kid doesn't read the game very well? Is that because the kid doesn't see the pass? Is that because they are just so risk adverse that maybe they got the puck turned over and now they're just like, there is no way I'm putting myself in that situation? No, I think it's something that was said to them early on in their life as a rule or a phrase to say, never, ever pass the puck in front of your own net. Don't do it. So now we're at a level where these kids can play. There's a lot of really good players in the league. There are kids in that league who are going to play Division I hockey who will not pass the puck under any circumstance in front of their own net. I think it's absurd. I think it's ridiculous. But my immediate phrasing is, well, why are they doing that? What is going on that causes them to do it? These are good hockey players, really good, smart players that in this particular area, regardless of the circumstances, I'm not talking about F1 and F2 in the passing lane. They're trying to sauce a puck over. I'm talking nobody's there and they won't do it. That to me is interesting. That's a read that's been eliminated. How do we put that back in? How do we encourage these sorts of things? And I'm not saying everyone needs to do it the way I'm doing it. I'm just raising the question. And I want to see if we can create dialogue around, we want to have offense, but sometimes we use phrasing in like the one that I picked because I thought it was a good one because we hear it all the time and people use it at every age level. What is the impact of that? And is it as long lasting as the one that I just described? And if it is, can we find a way to evolve and still not have kids be completely on the wrong side of the puck all the time and putting their team at really bad situations, which I don't know how much that's really happening. And that's why I want to illustrate those clips with Ella, because there's times in which, she's moving and doing certain things, but how much risk was the team really under at any given time? I would argue none. If there was, it was really small, if not any. And so if that's the case, then should we be encouraging that? And then the other point, the last one I'll have in this diatribe here, of the context behind what it was that I was trying to do. And what I am trying to do as part of this community that I'm trying to foster this type of thought is, as we go through this with these kids and we're working on their ability to read the game and see the game, and we want them to understand, where they need to be in relationship to the puck at a given time. You're either going to be above the puck or on the offensive side, you're going to be on the defensive side, or you're going to be neutral. You're waiting or anticipating, and you're trying to put yourself in a neutral position so that you could go either or, depending on what happens next. How many of our kids read the game that way? Should they read the game that way? How many of them even consider what position that they're actually in at a given time in relationship to where the puck is? And if we were to teach it in that way, what impact might that have on their ability to decision? And when we ask them a question and say, hey, what were you thinking? You were on the offensive side of the puck there. What were you thinking? Well, I saw X. Or why were you in a neutral position there? Well, it's because. So you create the question based on the positioning of the puck and their position, and then the context of the play. And all those becomes considerations that allow them to make better decisions based on the situation going forward, which may foster more offensive thinking that's responsible as it relates to team play. That's what the context is. So hopefully, as I go through this, I wanted to kind of lay it out so everyone knew what it was I'm really trying to do, who this video was for, and the and all that was. And then Wally's part of part of my cult. And so he saw this whole situation. He was like, oh my God, like this is something that we should share. He asked me and I said, yes, but I was concerned about context because everyone's going to see the video. They read the video. Not everyone's going to read the article. And then you could read the article and not watch the video. And I really think you need to do both. So I was a little worried about that. So that's why I've gone the extra mile here in this call to really explain the context of what I'm after, what the purpose of it is, who the population is I'm speaking to, and what I'm trying to do, and what types of things, what types of conversations I'm trying to elicit. So on the heels of that, we have some hands up. I'd be happy to go through whomever. Maybe Wally, you can distribute who's going to ask what when.
You're muted, Wally. I think Peter's up next.
Peter, Peter?
Yeah, okay. Just making sure. Thanks, Darryl, for your explanation. I just have a couple of points. One, I couldn't agree with you more about the vernacular, verbiage, vocabulary, whatever you want to call it, in terms of getting your point across. And I think the more descriptive that can be, the more meaningful it can be to players, I think is extremely important when it comes to the teaching and learning. The one thing I will say, though, is I think it can vary. I think that what is meaningful for one player may or may not be meaningful for another player. And I think as the challenge for a coach, although you certainly want consistency, the challenge in coaching is making sure that that information that you're giving to individual players is meaningful for those individual players. They all learn different. They all process information different. So I think that there is some again, keeping the consistency in mind. I think there is some, I had mentioned this maybe before you got on the call. There is some gray area there that needs to be addressed from time to time with the players. But I have a question for you. You had mentioned earlier in your discussion about even at the high, and I may be quoting you wrong, but even at the highest level, we have players who are unable to make reads for a myriad of reasons. Maybe you could expand on some of those, not the whole myriad, but some of those reasons that you feel that players, even at the highest level, are unable, in your opinion, to make those reads.
I think that they make the reads, they don't act on the reads. And the reason they may not act on the reads, and the longer they go not acting on the reads, the less likely they're going to make those reads as consistently as they once was. And
Agreed.
The reasons are because of the stakes in which they're playing, where they are in the lineup, their feeling of how much mistake they can actually make. At the highest level of women's hockey, you're playing a tournament, and one mistake at the wrong time could cost you a medal or a chance to play. Like, the stakes are incredibly high, which cannot be discounted as part of the highest level and the challenges that go on there, and why some of these things, like a player is going to be abnormally, in my mind, miss a read. They're going to miss an obvious read to put themselves in a specific spot. They do so because of the stakes and all of those, where they're at, what they're trying to do, all the context of the game. They're just going to perhaps err on the side of caution. So there might be only a small percentage of players, the highest level, who are making a decision on the read of where they should be on the certain sides of the puck at a given time. They're actually processing, maybe I should be here, maybe I should be there, maybe I should be here. Oftentimes they're going to position themselves perhaps more on the defensive side. And then if there's 100% chance, then they're going to jump, or it's an 80% chance, then they're going to activate. So it's not to discount it. I'm saying that if you were to watch the gold medal game, for example, and you just evaluated every puck touch and the players around the puck touch and their support and where they moved and when they saw the read, how many of them, and at different times of the game, it's a sliding scale, right? It moves as to what their tolerance for risk is, what the score of the game is, and all those considerations, they're all factors. That's at the highest level. But when you're coaching, we have 6 defensemen playing 8 defensemen that play at the highest level that we have. Well, the rest of us can be in situations in which they are learning these sorts of things because they don't have the same level of consideration. They're only going to play, at a level that, gets to a point where there's maybe 3 or 4 games all year that they have these considerations. The rest of the time, they can really be learning what these things are and not be at the same level of risk that we're promoting at the highest level where the stakes are so high, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, that kind of happens across hockey. I mean, you can even see that in the NHL as well, that,
especially.
I mean, guys, there it's costing them money, right? I mean, you got the 4th line guy who makes a mistake, turns the puck over at the offensive blue line. He's probably not going to see the ice again. So I can certainly agree with that. And especially, the risk and reward really changes depending on where you are in the lineup, who you're playing with, all of that sort of stuff at every level. Yeah, definitely.
So my question is, do we all coach now on that standard? Because that's what we're hearing. Is that because we often the way the vernacular comes, it comes from often the top down.
Yeah.
Like we're hearing every night, you're going to hear you could hear 20 different press conferences about the game, and they're going to talk about these things and different types of words that are happening at the highest level. And now I'm a peewee coach, and I start using that vernacular with my peewee team. I don't know if it's the same. Yeah, I'm going to argue it's not.
Yeah,
and I think it's different, and we don't educate our people enough about what's different about it, which is the whole content. I hope that makes sense, Peter, but that's...
Yeah, no, I get it. And for me, the issue is at the developmental level. So, Adam, novice, peewee, it's about making the right play. It's not whether the kid's on the 3rd line or not. It's about making the right play. And that's the only way that they're going to get. Now, the issue is the right play varies from coach to coach. So,
correct.
And that to me is where we want to make some progress. And why do you have, maybe you're, if you got a team of 9 forwards and your 8th, 9th guy, you're telling them to dump the puck in and change when there's a chance to carry the puck into the offensive zone, then to me, that's wrong. I think that's a mistake that, and again, so some of the factors I don't think should come into play at the developmental level in particular, based on score or ability level or all those things. It's about doing the right thing.
I agree. And sometimes the right thing and this is where I think you're right. And this is where it becomes difficult and why we need to have discussion, because it's not really clear cut. There's a lot of factors, because the right play for the 9th forward on the team is not the same play as the right play for the 1st forward on the team, because they process the game differently and you have different developmental objectives. The right play for the 9th forward might be just to get them to skate 3 steps with the puck to make a decision. The right play for the 1st forward might be to find a 2-on-1 somewhere and work inside the 2-on-1. So it's very different, and that's a sliding scale, which is why it's very difficult to impose these like what's right and what's wrong at the lower levels, because there's so many factors that weigh into it. What I want to get to as part of that discussion, to maybe simplify it, is these 3 levels of where you are in relationship to the puck. Are you above the puck? Are you even with the puck? Are you behind the puck? And if so, why so? Why were you there? What were you trying to do? And to me, and this goes back to my own philosophy, and I'm ramming down everyone's throat all the time, which is I would love to see more discussion-based coaching at the minor hockey level.
Agreed.
And asking of what's going on rather than a telling what's going on, or I'm uncomfortable with the risk as the coach because of what I saw. But maybe for that player, Like, let's talk it through. I think that's such an important thing that we just don't do. As a coach, you're always imposing your philosophy and your admire at your risk levels and all that stuff. Should you be? I don't know that we should. Maybe it's better to get it from the kids, and then you can coach the results. So hey, you go out to the point. The puck goes D to D. You're the weak side or the strong side forward. Go D to D. Puck. You go out to your point. Guy goes D to D. That guy shoots it off the pass. It hits a shin pad to that forward. This guy just sprints out of the zone because he's like, turnover. I'm gone. This guy gets it. He tries to go off the wall, kind of mishandles it. They keep the puck in.
Yeah.
And now I got a forward out in the neutral zone who is effectively, by the letter of the law, cheating for offense. But is he cheating for offense? Really? He made a read. That was a block shot. His guy was getting to the puck first. He sprints out of the zone. And the fact that the kid that got the puck wasn't able to make that play, do we hang it on the kid that left early? We do. Should we?
Yeah.
I'd rather say, what did you see? Well, Darryl, I saw the puck get blocked. I knew our guy was getting there first. I'm thinking this is a breakaway. I felt like I had to go. Yeah, I know, but they kept the puck in. Yeah, I know, but our guy got there first. Like, that's not fair maybe to hang it on. And I think we get caught in these situations where, that this kid's making a read. He was on the defensive side of the puck. He read the circumstance. Should we be encouraging the read? That was, in my mind, that's the right read. It's a bad result. Now, maybe it's the last minute of the game. And now he's trying to get an empty netter. And you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. I understand that. And that is the right read. No question. But at this time, maybe we don't need that. We just want to make sure it gets out and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now you're coaching. You're not saying the kid comes back to the bench and you're like, hey, we're under a minute to go and you're going to cheat for offense for an empty netter. Like, that's pretty selfish. That's one way to do it. Or the other way to do it is like, I love that read. I think that was totally right. Our guy was getting there first. I don't know about last minute of play. Like, maybe we should win but I love that read. So that's two different approaches. And I think that there's a way to get your message across sometimes. Not what you say, it's how you say it. Yeah. And in the second way, I think you're encouraging more reads, which is, we're trying to promote hockey sense. We're trying to teach hockey sense, but sometimes we are actively, even though it's not purposefully, but we are actively eliminating reads from kids and saying, yeah, that's not a read. That's a hard and fast. That's a hard and fast. That's hard and fast. Like, okay, well, which one's a read? Which one? You know what? I can't figure out which one's a read and which is not. So I'm just going to play. I know he wants me here, so that's it. I think there's too much of that. That's why I raised the question. So it's great stuff. I love this part of the discussion because this is really the heart of what I want to get to, is like this stuff. It's less about right or wrong. Should she have gone? Should she not have gone? It's, she did. There's a read there. What do we do inside of that? That's where I want to go. So I thanks for tap dancing all over that, because that's exactly what I was hoping for.
Thanks.
Sammy might be up next, or Tim.
Tim, go ahead, Tim.
Sure. So much to say, so little time.
I don't know. These guys typically go for 3 hours, so I don't know.
Yeah. No, really lots of things, but like, agree 100% with your article, Darryl, 100%. And with your basic premise about, reading the game. I think that term cheating is kind of born out of the old school safe is life basically approach to coaching. Like, be safe, don't take a risk. And I totally agree that that's a not, well, it can be effective in its own way, but it's not a healthy way to coach, and it's denying a lot of the joy of the game to the players. But I think that's where it's kind of born. And I think the cheating, the actual cheating verbiage might be applied to the disregarding or the misreading of the risk factors that, you know, we would probably, many of which we'd all agree on. So that's where maybe where it comes from. And I really totally agree again that the consideration of all the risk factors is a very large part of what we would probably call hockey sense. And by, as you're saying, by denying the players the right to make those reads is stunting their hockey sense growth. I totally agree with that. And I'd be interested, like, once we're sort of through this part of the discussion, to actually have a deeper discussion about what are the risk factors. You name a whole bunch of several. Are there others? And
Yeah.
right on that point, your last illustration about the kid blocking the shot and he's going to get there first. Like, should the skill level of that kid who's going to be first to the puck be a consideration and a risk factor that you need to take into account? But we can, you know, sort of discuss that amongst ourselves. And Wally, like, as I'm listening here now, you know, originally we had the right stuff, the right amount at the right time. We expanded that to include perhaps the right tone. And now from Darryl, we maybe need to include with the right languaging or with the right verbiage. So our basic coaching guidelines are expanding with time, which is totally appropriate. So anyway, that just kind of been my 2 cents. I love the direction you want to take, Darryl. And at some point when we're all done here, I'd love to sort of go back and, okay, time of the game, you know, score of the game. We all know those are factors, but what are some of the other things that might play into a player's, you know, decision making?
So, like, Tim, this is where I think the heart is when we talk about, can you teach hockey sense or not? That's like the $1 million question. Can you teach hockey sense or not?
Absolutely, yes.
This is hockey sense. This is hockey sense. So when you say, like, so I'm talking like Pee-wee coach, Bantam coach, like in that bracket, Adam coach, whatever the case may be. And they're sitting there saying, look, he either has it or he doesn't. They can or they can't, this or that, all of that stuff. I'm saying, and you're saying, they listen to this call and they're like, hey, holy, like, you can teach hockey sense? Okay. So, like, but how? Like, how do I do that? Like, what do I do? And we have all the strategies of just let them play, just do all this stuff and this and that, which is great. And everyone knows my thoughts on all of that. But if you're the coach, you're standing there on the bench, you're watching this game. Questions regarding all of these things that you just brought up, one question here or there, that causes reflection. Reflection is hockey sense, because hockey sense is the ability to see a situation, anticipate what its projected result is, and get there first or on time so that I can then influence the play. That's basically what it is. It's an ability to convert forethought into action. That's it. So by creating reflection, you then give them an opportunity to have forethought. They can now be like, okay, well, what was I thinking? Well, the truth was, I wasn't thinking at all. Okay, well, there's our first problem. Okay, so in these situations, here's a few considerations. Okay, so now we do that. A month, 2 months later, a year, 2 years, depending on the development path and your effectiveness as a coach, they come back and you're like, okay, so here we are again. What were you thinking? Hi, good news, coach. I was thinking. Okay, now this is good. I'm listening. What were you thinking? Well, based on this pattern, I thought the puck was going to go there. So that's why I went there. Okay, now what were the factors? And now you start asking these questions. To me, that's how, from the lowest level, and I mean the lowest level of player, and then the lowest level of coach, the guy who played a little bit, he's just getting his feet wet. He was thrown into the fire, and they don't have a ton of like teaching skill, but yet you have these kids, and there's a responsibility to try to help them. How do you help them? What you just described, Tim, to me is the heart of it. It's the asking of the question of what were you thinking, why, and you might not. They're rhetorical. It's not for you to pipe in and give your 2 cents. It's just to create reflection. Well, how might you do it next time? Well, I have this option, I have that option. Okay, that's it. You don't need to coach them as to, well, there was option A and option B, and clearly option B was the right one, and you chose option A. So next time choose option B. Well, that's not good coaching, because the next situation is that option A could be the right one. We don't know. So I think that those are things, and that's as part of this whole greater discussion. That's kind of what it is to take it down to the Adam coach who, you're sitting around, we need a coach. Who played? So someone's mom raised their hand. Well, I played a little bit. Okay, well, you're the only one. Guess what? You're the coach. And now she wasn't want to coach. She just wanted to watch her kid play hockey. Well, now you're the coach. Now you're behind the bench. What do? I'd really like to have, these are the types of discussions I think we can do that I think are fascinating, that can really give people real information about how you can influence something that for the longest time was assumed we couldn't. And the truth is we can. Now we know we can. So now how do we disseminate that down? Language is one of them. And what we're talking about, how you ask questions, what questions you ask. So Tim, another one, tap dancing all over exactly the point that I want to get to. So another really good one. I don't know how you're going to follow that one up, Sammy, because we've had 2 really good ones. So I'm anxious to hear what you might have to say.
Sammy will be fine.
I can never match them. I don't even try.
Keep trying, Sammy. Way ahead of us.
Thank you, Darryl, for coming on. It's always fascinating. I really wanted to thank you for all of the language, because I was in Beijing doing play-by-play and color, and really had to think the game for the first time in those ways, and was able to watch people like Owen Powers in the venue and use some of your language. So thank you. Getting to watch some of the younger players, Slavkovsky and Yelenseyev, those guys that I would have never seen what they do prior to thinking the game the way you think it, and which then allowed me to do my job better. So thank you for that. That was great. And being in the venue was just an incredible experience. I'd never really watched or worked men's hockey before, so that was really great. So 2 things. One is I think everybody needs to watch the men's semifinal game tonight for sledge hockey at the Paralympics. It's 11 o'clock tonight. One of the best hockey sense in the entire world. I mean, I'm clearly very biased, but my husband reads the play so incredibly well. And in his 6th Paralympics, obviously he's not as fast as he was. Obviously he's not the player that he was, and yet he's in on every single play. I am just absolutely amazed. Every time I see him, he is nowhere near where I think he should be, and then he is in on a play. So 11 o'clock tonight, Toronto time, and the gold medal game is 11 o'clock on Saturday, I think. So everybody needs to watch that. The question I have for you specifically, Darryl, is I have watched Ella play a couple times now and watched the Oakville team. I was incredibly amazed by their sense on the ice. So the question is around other players. So Abby Murphy, I thought, was really good, and she does a lot out there. Why are these girls, why your daughter, and I don't know if you can even comment on this, but your daughter and Abby Murphy, what is the difference between them and the players on the U18 team? Like, what is that next step that those 2 girls specifically, I guess, or maybe that group of girls are missing to get to that next level? Because to me, they look like they are doing everything right.
I would say that there's only whatever they're taking 6, 7. They're taking 7D to, you know, out of all of Canada. And the truth is there is a ton of really, really talented kids. And I think that it comes down to, you know, what your vision is for the team and what you want in terms of the assets of the kids and the style of play and the context of everybody else and all of that sort of thing. So I think that those are all factors. And you know, I wouldn't want to be the one that picks the team because I think that you could have from what I gather, and I was fortunate enough to see some of the kids from the West for the first time when Ella was fortunate enough to be in Calgary. And there's some unbelievably talented players. But my thoughts are is you could probably put 2-3 teams together, have a tournament and take one team. Like it's that close in terms of what you want. And that so what do they need? Well, there's something, I don't know that it's necessarily like missing per se. Like I personally know where I want to take, you know, Ella's game and things that I know that are things that are important for her. But there's some things that she's elite in, really elite. And you could easily make a case that she's as good, if not better, than anyone that they're selecting in that area. But then there's another area where I could probably give you 20 kids, 20 defensemen who are better than her in that area. So I think it comes down to it's just a tributation. It's a celebration of the riches of talent that's actually available. And you know, Ava Murphy's one of the best defensemen at her age group.
Oh yeah, Ava Murphy, not Abby Murphy. Plays on Team USA. Sorry.
One of the best kids in all of Canada. She's a treat. Ella's fortunate to have been playing with her for 3 years now. And then we also have another girl on Ella's team, Christina Cavieri, who she's the captain of our team, and she is also unbelievable. But they all have different assets, right? Like what Ella is really good at, you know, Murphy's good at other things, and then Christina is also good at other things. And it's just, you know, when you're talking about 7 spots in all of Canada, you know, that's not a lot of spots, you know, and there's a lot of kids who are not going to make it. But at the same time, being there, having the privilege of being around those kids, you do get a sense and see what the next level is. And I was able to see it clearly for where Ella's at. But yeah, the good news is that they're in the mix. That's at this stage in their development. That's good. There's still a long time. This is a marathon. There's still a long time, and not making this team at this juncture, to me, is not precluding to what might happen in the future. So it's you know, it's really a fascinating process to go through, and it's an extensive process, of course. And then COVID thrown into the mix really created a lot of other challenges. But there's some kids who can just flat out play and are physically gifted, and then you have kids who are just mentally, they have great understanding. And then, you know, you have kids who are, it's like anything, they're going to be unbelievable at a certain age, and then at 22 or 23 things could change, things can flip, everything. So that's why to me it's a marathon. And you know, the whole goal is to just try to get there in the just try to get into the mix, and then work hard every day to just get better every single day, and let the chips fall. Let the chips fall. Here's what I know for sure. What I know for sure is that being at the level and playing at that level affords a level of understanding about what it takes to be at those levels, which will transfer to every aspect of her life.
It's a great perspective. Thank you. It's not only just a great perspective on those players, but a great perspective from a father to a daughter too. So thank you.
I think Kim's up, Wally, and then Barry.
I got time for 2 more, and then I got to bounce, but I want to make sure that we get a little bit of this in here. So go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to share an anecdote that brings what we were talking about previously together about verbiage and a concept. So last Friday night, I got parachuted in to coach our U15 AA team. I know the players because I do skills with them every week as part of our high performance program. Some of them come to my camps, so like I know how well they shoot and skate, but I've only watched them play a couple times. I knew nothing about the opponent. They're playing Etobicoke, never seen them play, happen to know the coach, zero. And it's a now we're in playoff playdowns. It's a little weird in Ontario. So, I need to go in this environment and make them effective, right? And you go, okay, well, there's a million things I could do as a coach who's coached for 15 years, but I don't really know what these kids are doing. I don't know their systems, and I don't think, in 4 hours time I can learn it all. And I have no idea what the opponent's going to do. And this is a game that means something, right? So to me, this is not that coaches are necessarily put in this situation, but if you are, the mom who puts up her hand and goes, oh my God, I'm coaching, right? This goes back to just teach small area games, just do things. So I just picked one thing. I'm going to give them one concept. And the concept was own the blue lines. Just own the blue lines, guys. That's all I want you to do. We're playing in a crappy little Toronto rink with a neutral zone that takes you half a stride to get through, right? So don't let them in our front door over the blue line, and don't let them out of their blue line. That's it. That was the entire game plan that we focused on, right? So to me, then you're just asking questions. Okay, so we backed in there, strong side D. One of the Ds came across, skating forwards, angled, pushed her to the wall. Okay, why did you decide to do that? Well, you said not to let her over the blue line. Okay, so you chose to skate forwards. Great. And, it was interesting to see how it evolved over the game, because of course I said it, I talked about it in the room, and they just, backed in out of our, gave up the front door, let the burglar in the front door to gain our zone, right? Didn't put good back pressure to keep them in their zone, those types of things. And over by the end of the game, it was really fascinating to just notice that one single concept that we hammered home. We got scored on in the first shift. That's just my bad coaching. Okay. And, the other team was the better team, but we were the better team in the second half of the game. And that was the only thing we coached to. It was the only thing we focused on. So I'm not saying it was, we didn't win 5-0. Okay. We lost the game, but it was really fascinating, not really knowing the team or the opponent, to just go in and myopically focus on one thing and center all your questioning and all your feedback around one thing. And the girls really enjoyed it, and they really found it a way to measure their success that wasn't necessarily the final score or the outcome. And I found it really useful for us as coaches too. So I just wanted to share that. And I thought, it brought us sort of full circle on what we were talking about before, that, the verbiage was so clear, right? Just own the blue line, own the blue line, own the blue line. And it really did transform their game. And I still don't know what our power play was. I don't know what they do on the breakout. I have no idea. I couldn't tell, which is probably an issue. But it didn't matter. We almost won the game. And we were down 2-1 with 2 minutes left, pulled the goalie, hit a crossbar. We almost won with no familiarity. So I hope that plants a seed, but I'm, like I said, it's a bit of a unique scenario, but I think the verbiage can be so powerful. So I just wanted to share it. I don't know if Darryl has any thoughts on that, but to me, I could have done that with the U9 team, done the exact same thing.
It's a game. It's game theming, which is a great coaching concept that you can do, whether you're, you were parachuted in and you're trying to, get your head wrapped around this group and trying to, come up with something that you think is going to be important, that's going to help them win, but also be a development piece that's important as well. And you want to see how they're going to react and all of that stuff, and the development throughout the entire game by focusing on one thing. You can really make some great traction, which is exactly what you're talking about. And I think that, anytime you can, you're also connecting the hockey sense piece of it, owning the blue line. Every time they exit, they're going to exit differently. They're going to exit maybe with just one player one time. Then they're going to exit, it's a 3-on-2 another time. Then they're going to exit, the puck's in the middle of the ice. Then they're going to exit, the puck's on the outside. The puck's going to be on someone who has a puck who is on their backhand. Someone's going to have a puck who's on the forehand. Their third line's going to come out that doesn't have the same amount of skill to hurt you than the first line. Then maybe there's a defenseman that's going to lead the rush next. So the best part about that is that there's a fingerprint concept. Fingerprint meaning there's no two that are alike, but you still have to adjust and adapt and find your way. those types of things are so powerful, and it creates, it forces them to try to work together, and then they have to talk about it, and it gives you opportunity to raise questions, and you're creating thought, and you're doing it on a team level. What I'm talking about, what I've been talking about, is all on an individual level, and you're taking it now on a team level and doing it on a theming. It's basically the same thing. It's the same thing, and you're trying to get them to react, and then maybe they might ask questions. Hey, how could I have done that better? I felt like I had her, and then all of a sudden she was able to get the line. Why? What do you think happened? And now you get this exchange, or you come off and the 2D come off and they've made 2 plays that denied an entry, and they high-fiving each other, and they're happy because they feel like they've really accomplished something. And like, there's great value in that.
I think Barry's up.
Yeah, good. Really enjoying the session, Darryl, as well as what you put together to start with. Again, with my job with Hockey Alberta, just working with coaches of all levels, and a little bit of a background, but more a question for you. There is a fly in the ointment in all of this, and it isn't even the coaches that we're talking about. Some will buy in and some won't to Socratic coaching and, systems versus principles and, teaching hockey sense, all of that, but it's parents. And they end up having a major influence, starting with kids even as young as 9 years old, at least in Alberta, having watched it, where the importance of winning, good refereeing, all of those things take precedence over the whole development thing. So, the thing of the journey versus the destination. So there's a big circle of influence in the sport, and I'm sure it's happening even, like Michael, with you down in the US, and that it's a huge issue. And it's caused a lot of grief in Alberta, where there's new leagues forming and et cetera, just because people aren't happy with things. What's your suggestion on us trying to support, help, give advice, teach parents? I think of the Hockey Canada side of it, and they years ago put out a whole bunch of stuff on parents, it was like 30-second video clips in commercials. And what they talked about is just different scenarios about parents butt out, let the kids play, let them have fun, the car ride home, stuff like that. But have you seen, or do you know of anything that can help us get the message out to parents?
I haven't really seen anybody. I think if anybody had the secret sauce, it would cost $1 million, and they'd be selling it to everyone who could. It's one of those types of things that it's a really difficult question. There's no easy answers to it, which is why we ask the same question every year. I think that it's a really good question. All I'm going to offer you is just my own 2 cents and my own thoughts of what I would, or what I think is important. But of course, none of it's really tried and true and say, well, this is what you do and this is the anticipated result. The truth of the matter, in my mind, is where when you view parents, and especially the ones that are really overactive and are looking to like dictate or control environments to improve the conditions that are more favorable for their own kids, or whatever the case may be, it comes down to educating them and having an actual, you have to have a plan and a solid philosophy that's based on quality research about what's best in actual player development. And then you have to be able to educate your coaches to be able to execute that. And then the parents become a management tool from which you're going to help manage the kids to be able to go in there. So oftentimes the parents, kind of their importance in the grand scheme of things, gets leapfrogged over top of everything else because it's such a daily problem. And so then it becomes like it's almost like the firehouse effect, right? The best way to have a great firehouse is to prevent fires, not to actually have people that are really good at putting fires out. So in my mind, it starts with overall philosophy. Like Wally's going to talk about a mission statement. I think that's critical. You're also going to talk about how players should be coached and what types of things are important for the betterment of all and the good of the game. And it's not, we're not just, your child's not the only kid in which we're trying to influence here, although that's the thing that you care about the most. And when people watch the game, they watch their kid. I'm a parent, and I like to think I've been around this game. I see it at different levels. When I watch her play, I watch her. I genuinely I watch her. And when she's not playing, then I watch the rest of the shift, but rest of the shift's going on. But when she's on the ice, I'm interested in what she's doing. So I'm just as guilty as anybody else. But what we don't do enough of, I don't think, is we don't educate parents. And the reason we don't educate parents is because I don't know that we have a solid enough philosophy and way in which we want to operate that we can confidently present. It's so haphazard that it provides these little holes and cracks and windows from which parents who are don't have the best intentions for the greater good of the entire group, they use those holes and cracks and stuff to exploit, to then create more problems, to then stack the deck in their own kids' favor. That's not going away anytime soon. How do you prevent that? Well, you got to close those holes, and you close those holes by, I think, presenting a better front. The challenge you have, it all sounds great. Listen, I'm not under any illusions that this is like the secret sauce, because now the problem is that you got to go to coach development to be able to execute it. And it's so hard. You as an organization come up with a mission statement. You're like, listen, we believe in, this type of development. We're going to educate our coaches in this thing. The coach comes in, he's there for 1 year, boop, he's out. You got to have another one. You're constantly trying to train. You got people with all different levels of experience. It is a nightmare. It's really, really hard. If I had the answers, I certainly wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I would be sitting on a beach somewhere. But the issue is that it's an age-old problem, which sounds like it has simple solutions. And I think that what I'm talking about, everyone would agree with. The execution of that is so difficult, and the flow, the interchange of coaches on a year-to-year basis, and the variance of abilities of those coaches makes it very difficult to influence, and it's tough, very tough. And I don't ever want to come across as someone who can just flippantly just offer some high level 10,000 foot view that feels like criticism to those on the ground floor who are actually going through these problems. I don't really have the answers. I know what the answers should be, but the execution of that, I don't have any solutions to that. And I feel like that's the problem. I know, Barry, you and your group, you guys, there's no question. You can lay out, if you haven't already, have the entire system and structure in place as to how the whole thing should go. But when it gets to the next layer and educating your coaches, and you got people coming and going, it's just so difficult. And so those best laid plans, you put it to the execution level, there's cracks in the foundation, there's holes all over the place. And the parents who they're looking for those holes, looking for those cracks to stack the deck in their own kids' favor. They're just constantly exploiting them, and it's a major issue. And I don't ever want to come across as someone who's just flippantly going to disregard the great work that you guys do under tremendous difficult circumstances. I don't really have the answers. I just don't. I don't know how to execute it, and it's really hard. You need to come at it I would try to come at it from a human perspective, but even then, it's really difficult. There are people who just genuinely believe the secret to success in hockey is to stack the deck in their kids' favor as much as possible and eliminate all the other competition as they go along. And you just can't there's such a narrow viewpoint of what's going on, and the number of people that create problems where, yes, your kid is the best kid in a city of 20,000 people. When we expand to the region, and now we're talking about 200,000 people, they're not even in the top 10. And then when we talk about the entire province, they're not in the top 300 kids in the entire province. They're not even in the top 300 kids. And yet you're going to argue with me about giving them more ice time or cutting this kid or going down to 2 lines or whatever it is that they were playing with this player, or this player should be cut, and all the other things, or mistreatment, all the things that go on there. It's just a lack of perspective. So I would love to say you need to educate more, but by the time I give you the list of things you need to educate, you spend more time educating and not enough time teaching. Like, you got to go through ethics. You got to go through, the actual way you want to play and your development philosophy. And then you got to talk about all these other things that I just spoke about. And then you got to talk about what's best for all the kids and the decision. I mean, by the time you're going to be so meetinged out, like, I just don't know how you execute that. And I wish I had that answer. I just don't. So I apologize, Barry, because I've gone on a 5 to 7 minute diatribe, and at the very end of it, I've given you a grand total of nothing.
No, I do appreciate it, and I sort of threw it out there as a fishing line. Yeah, we do those things, and Tim would be an example of somebody who's mentoring this year for us. And one of the first things that's put in their critical path is they do a mission statement with their staff, and then they'll do one with the kids once a team's selected. And that stuff comes from Wally, from all the years of suggesting that we do it. So we do it now, but that's only with select groups. So the stuff that you're talking about is the truth. I know Wally puts this out there, so that's one of the reasons why is people, we can share it with others that they can at least hear and become more cognizant of it. It's an issue because not only do we lose players because of certain things every year, but the coaches, especially the young ones, and the officials, when they start getting barraged, it's like, I've had it. I don't need any more of it. So no, I really appreciate your honesty and candor. Thanks.
Why anyone would ever sign up to be an official in minor hockey, it just takes a special kind of person to do that. And the fact that we lose people who are actually interested in doing that is crazy. And like I said, I've said it 1,000 times. Look, I haven't met a referee that has been able to be over 50% to my liking. I just haven't. Every time he makes a call, it's 50% right. He's never going to get good. It's only going to be 50%. And a lot of the calls are 100% wrong. It's wrong for everybody. I mean, it's just hard. And you get these young kids and trying to come in and get involved in the game. I mean, it's really hard. And there's just no way hard way to control that. COVID offered an opportunity to keep people out of the ranks. I just don't think that's the answer either. There's been a lot of discussions about, well, we got to keep parents out, and they're not going to stay out. I know myself, my kid's near the end of her minor hockey career. Like, she's done minor hockey. Now she's in junior. So 1 more year left, and then she's going to school, and she's gone. I'm hanging on by a thread here. I love it. I want to go to every game. I want to go to every practice. I know it's coming to an end. And once it's gone, it's gone. It's never coming back. It's just such a great thing to enjoy with your child, to be around their sports. I love being there. I want to be at everything. I work my entire work schedule to make sure that I can come and watch all of her games and stuff. So I don't want to be shut out of the rink. It's going to be over in a second. And for a lot of people who are not as fortunate as me, who had a kid who was passionate about it, I mean, kid's going to join hockey at 5 years old and be gone by 11 or 12. Yeah. It's like they're gone. They have other interests. They have other things. They have bad experiences, or they do other things. I mean, that's a crime. It's so hard. And so I don't want to be banned from the rink. I don't think any parents should be not encouraged to come and enjoy watching their kid. Problem is, you take the good with the bad. You're going to get people that are looking for holes, and they're strategizing and commiserating with the other parents and trying to work angles and all. That's just how it is. And I don't know how you get around that, but I do really want to make sure that it's you guys that are on the ground floor trying to come up with those solutions. All you can do is fight the good fight every day. Try to make an impact as you go along. I just don't know if you're going to solve the problem, but you can definitely alleviate it. And if you can keep another kid in the game for maybe a little longer, I think that's probably your best thing you can do.
Well,
Yeah.
last thing, I got to roll too. I've got a meeting, but last thing, Darryl, is once your daughter leaves, she'll come back because you'll have grandkids, and then you can do it all over again. It's
Yeah.
great.
I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm actually looking forward to when she starts coaching, because then I can see what real impact I had on her or not. That's when I'm really going to know whether I made an impact or not, is if I watch her in front of a group of kids and listen to how she approaches it, because I'm certain that I will hear my voice coming from her, especially at the beginning until she finds hers. And that's when I'm going to find out what real job I've been able to do with her.
And just before you jump off, Barry, and we all know this, and I would totally agree that, you know, parents can be a real fly in the ointment, and I'm free to point my finger because I'm not one. But you know, sadly, far too many coaches are complicit in that attitude or approach that winning is number one. And me as a coach, looking good and padding my resume by having a winning team, take far too much space in the whole developmental or lack of developmental process with far too many teams. Like to be a leader, as coaches are, really in a nutshell, is to serve. It's not to benefit from those you are leading. And so I think it's really important that although parents get kicked all over the block, there are far too many coaches that are in it just to win so they can look good. And, you know, that's just a backwards approach, definitely in my mind. It's sort of hand in hand with that, I think, going way back to, you know, what's appropriate at what age levels, and the NHL is different than minor hockey, and certainly it is. And really, in a nutshell, if you're putting development first for Ella or for an Adam kid or anybody else, there needs to be, on the part of the coaches, a lot bigger margin for error for making mistakes. And I think that's largely what Darryl's, a large part of what Darryl's talking about is, if I make a mistake reading the game, trying to take into account some of the risk factors I need to take into account, if I make an error, I don't need to be told, don't ever do that. I need to have a discussion about, what was I trying to do? What happened? What can I do differently next time? And that's the essence of, you know, sort of developmental coaching. And I think the essence of Darryl's whole approach, which I totally agree with. And sort of lastly, on the mission statement thing, and I think it's great that we all do it with our Hockey Alberta groups. It's important for all the coaches out there. It's one thing to do a mission statement. It's another thing to abide by it and coach by it and be accountable to it and deploy it at the appropriate times. So it's a great exercise, absolutely. But you know, we all know there's going to be situations you need to be prepared to stick to your guns. This is what we're in it for, development, number one, not winning, if that's what it is. And you need to be prepared to defend that mission statement. And thanks again, Darryl, for jumping on. This has been fabulous. And I got to jump out as well today. I
gotta bounce, so I'm gonna bid you guys adieu. But I do appreciate you guys listening. I thank Wally for taking it and asking me to put it out there. We don't normally, but I thought this was a good one, and he thought it was a good one, and it's turned out to be a phenomenal discussion we've had over multiple days. And this is another really good example of just being able to bring some of these ideas. And they're just conversation pieces. That's it. They're just conversation pieces that maybe influences the way someone thinks, that could influence and help a kid who, you know, we're trying to influence their hockey sense. And I think it's a worthwhile discussion. So that's why we did it. So thanks again.
And Sammy, thanks for the advertising on the para game, because I needed that, so I'll definitely be tuning in.
Wish Billy good luck.
Yeah, and Babs.
Listen, I'd like to make a comment before, because I think it ties the ribbon to this whole presentation, which was phenomenal to me. I'm glad Mike's on because the mission statement exercise has to be introduced at the beginning stages of coach education so they develop the confidence to understand why they're coaching, the process orientation of coaching to win. There's nothing wrong with winning. What is most important is the process and the lessons you learn. So, Mike, thank you very much because tonight I'm going to be doing the presentation, which the coaches site, and hopefully it'll lead to an expansion of coaches who are there for the right reason that want to get onto the game. So, thanks to everybody for coming on today. I don't know if anybody wants to stay on and share any thoughts, but I'm good for a while. Kim, your hand's up. Okay, have you got something to offer here, please?
Well, I was going to solve the problem.
Go
We're
ahead.
waiting. We're waiting this whole time.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I do actually have a thought on how to solve the problem, the parental craziness problem. So you're right, Wally. Start with a mission statement, right, for each team, but in conjunction with that or before that, ideally, you've got, the mission statement of the organization and the agreed upon principles of play for the organization. And these are tied together, right? Because if we're going to say it's all about development and then your principles of play are, we're going to win at all costs or just leave your top line on the whole game so you win. Obviously, those aren't synergistic. But I think how you sell this to parents and you get them to buy in and maybe think a little beyond their own child, right? And when I watched my daughter at Learn to Play, I laughed a little bit with Darryl, like she's the only one I can pay attention to. So you've got your principles of play, right? So I've talked about mine before: pace, poise, physicality. We do education of all the coaches. It's recorded, it's posted. So they do it live with me. It's accessible. So to Tim's point, Darryl's point, Barry's point, it doesn't need to be, you don't have to recreate the wheel every year. But the magic of it is how you do it day to day. So you're not necessarily going to go to the parents and say, hey, could you go watch these 3 hours of recordings Kim did about our 3 Ps? They're going to tell you to go up a wall. And actually, probably some of them that would watch the whole thing, they're probably the ones who would be the most dangerous with the information. But that's not what you're doing. What you're doing then is connecting those principles with your ABCs. So how are you going to take poise? How are you going to take physicality and move it into your practices and games, right? And how are you going to use that vocabulary in your practices and games? So, I'll give you an example. If you wanted to keep those 3 principles in, you're playing a team tomorrow night. You have one objective for the game that's centered on pace, one that's centered on poise, one that's centered on physicality. You could have all 3 on poise, you could have all 3 on pace. Doesn't really matter. You put them on the wall, you make them objective, and you communicate them to the parents. Now, you could communicate them in advance because we're supposed to be organized as coaches, right? So you could say in advance, hey guys, we're playing Joe Schmo's team tonight. We're really going to focus on poise. These are the three things we're going to do. There are a number of coaches in our organization who do this. They do it before, right? And I've talked about this before. The coach. So now a parent comes in. They want Sally to be the best player on the ice. Of course they do. They want her to stop all the pucks or stop all the one-on-ones or score all the goals. Of course, right? But you've planted a seed now that is connected with your principles, that is connected with your mission statement. It says, hey, I get we all want to win, but there's actually a focus here. And it's not, to the sense we must get 35 shots or else we're a bad team, right? But now there's a connection in the process, right? Where you can go back. You could do it at the beginning of the week. Hey guys, we're working on physicality in practice this week. Those are going to be our main focuses. So in the games, here's some things you should expect to see. I think it ultimately comes down to communication, and you can't hide from parents. You shouldn't hide from parents. You shouldn't be, I don't talk to parents. I know we've talked about that at length, that's not, coaching in this century, right? But I think you can do a lot to educate them to say, hey, like, I get it. You want to see your kids succeed. Absolutely. We all want to see our individual kids succeed on the team. But here's what we're actually doing. Here's actually what we're going to focus on for this tournament, right? Like we have a huge tournament that starts tomorrow. There's 180 teams in it, which is insane. And, you know, I said to the coaches, like, go into the tournament with 3 things you want to accomplish, right? 1 on pace, 1 on physicality, 1 on poise, and hammer the heck out of those things, right? And the parents actually use this. This is really the first year we've done it, because of course last year we played no games. This is the first year we've implemented, and it's amazing. There's our, you know, the coach that I laughed when we were talking about, you know, Ella coaching one day. Like the kid I coached since she was 12 is now a head coach here. She sounds a lot like me, but to hear her talking about the 3 Ps and how it applies for her team, the parents on her team use the vocabulary, the players on her team use the vocabulary unprovoked. Like it is having a big influence. You know, parents are using the word physicality, poise, pace, just when they talk about how their team is doing, right? So you've started to infiltrate a little bit. Now, keep in mind, I haven't dictated a single power play, haven't told them how to break out, haven't told them a single face-off. I haven't even told them what drills to run, right? You just, you know, infuse this idea. So yes, am I maybe a bit of a unicorn that does this? Absolutely. But is it really that hard for a coach, irrespective of whether the association has these guiding principles, to say, here's the things we're going to work on, and send an email before the game or at the beginning of the week to say, this week we're really going to focus on X. I get that we're writing practices on napkins, right? But you could even do it after the fact. Okay, on Monday morning, I'm going to send a recap from the week. And I think it comes down to the communication of it. And listen, I don't have it all spelled out in like extensive Excel spreadsheets, and like a lot of it is shooting fish in a barrel, but you got to shoot. You can't just sit there and go, wow, there's a lot of fish in that barrel, and they're annoying, right? Like you got to start to increase the buy-in. So I wouldn't say it's perfect here, but I would say I'm shocked. I will run sessions with kids that I have never coached their team. I've never been on the ice with their team. I've coached their coach. They'll come on the ice with me and they'll say, oh, well, like I was building a wall when I was protecting the puck. Like that's something I've taught all our coaches to teach them, but I've never been on the ice with that kid. So I think that's the key, is educating the parents about what you're trying to do. And then, like we said, when you have that verbiage, that curriculum, that shared vocabulary, the kids teach the parents. I bet you, I know for a fact, quite a few of the kids that I coached on Friday night went to their parents and said, oh, Kim really just wanted us to own the blue lines. And it was so fun to hunt the other team and not let them in our front door. It was awesome. And the parents said, wow, you really, like the girls love that. It's not rocket science, as my father would say. But I think we have to educate the parents, but more importantly, educate our players who, once they're teenagers, of course, educate the parents. But I think that's a bit of the secret sauce. I wouldn't say it's perfect, and I wouldn't say it's easy to enact, but you have to connect your mission statement with your on ice and the way you communicate and bring it all full circle. The mission statement just on the wall, of course, doesn't work, right? And we have to embody it. But then how does that also transfer, not just to how we act on the ice and respect and trust and loyalty, all those things, but our actual gameplay, right? And that's, I only think in big picture, obviously. So it works for me, but I think a coach could do it in their own little sphere. I certainly did it when I was a coach. It didn't matter what everyone else in the association was doing. I'm simply here to, as Tim said, serve and give coaches access to resources and information. But I think that's part of the secret sauce. You have to educate the parents about what you're actually trying to do every day on the ice. That's not just beat Joe's team, because we don't like Joe's team. But that's me on my soapbox. Mike knows a lot more than I do, so I'm going to exit stage right and watch the recording later. So thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Kim.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I just think Kim, I think that was the whole point of, Weaver's conversation last week, right? That there's a gap in the Kim McCulloughs of the world. Like you don't have those leaders to lead from the top and say, here's going to be our principles of play. And, I think I found a little bit of it. I mean, I know the organizations I work with that buy in and that are still around, like I can look back at the programs I started 10, 15 years ago and look at the fundamental pieces of their organizations, and they're still the same. And there's a reason probably why they're thriving is because they stick with the principles we began with at the start. And I think right now, even with I'm doing a little project with the Rangers with the junior Rangers, which is like from learn to play to rookie league, which is really a gap between learning how to play and then feeling that you got to go to travel. Down here, especially in the East Coast, there's just no in-house leagues. Like there are no rec leagues. There's no opportunity for an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old to play, what a lot of people call house hockey. That's why we've changed the name to rookie league, because we wanted to make it feel it's more like your town league just in one rink. But I think it's finding your verbiage and sending out information to find the people that want to join your programs based off of your philosophy and your mission, and the people that don't, and they don't, and that's great if they don't join, because they're not coming in with the wrong expectations to begin with, and hopefully you're not fighting them then every day. I think to Tim's point, there's too many coaches that come in because of their own ego and them wanting to win, and they cause these issues on their own. And I would say the same thing to officials. I had officiated a game last week with my 14U team because the officials didn't show up. And I guarantee it was the best officiated game both teams have had all year, because I know how to communicate. I know how to work with conflict resolution. I know how to allow a coach to blow some steam off or allow a player to, say something. But I also know how to intervene and talk and kind of, manage the game so that it doesn't get out of control, right? So, and I don't think we teach that to coaches or officials. We just teach them, know how to make an offsides and blow a whistle and drop a puck. And for coaches, we're trying to teach them systems and skills. And I think, Wally, what you'll go over today with the guys at the coaches site would be, none of that matters without a common mission and without, everybody pulling in the same direction. So sorry I was on late today, but definitely I think I got the gist of it. And Darryl's stuff was great that you shared with the article and the video to go along with it. I thought that was really powerful. So thanks for putting that together, and good luck this afternoon with the big guns.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. There's an awful lot of young guys on there, Mike.
They're little boys. They're little kids.
Yeah.
But they're again, I used to joke around with them. I'm like, they're not jaded yet. Like I'm a very jaded guy. Like I'm just like, wait, just wait. You wait. But a lot of that's because I just did the wrong things over and over and over again. And then hopefully you get it right.
I just got a text from Darryl, and I really do think that Kim's hit the nail on the head. I'm riding the horse of the mission statement as being the be all and end all, but it is a foundational part of it. If you combine coaching, which is principle coaching, and I don't mean value-driven principles, that comes from the mission statement. I mean technical principles. And the 3 words she used, and you coach that way, it simplifies thinking. What is poise? And it makes your coaching understandable in a different way. And it's all vocabulary and communication. So I think that's a very good idea by her. And I think we'll have to have her talk about that again, because, and it's all about coaching education. Like this is Hockey USA, Hockey Canada, Hockey Alberta, all the elected governing bodies and the power they have to implement this to deal with the problems that exist. And I'm looking forward to today's session. Who knows
Good.
where it's going to go. So, Tom, what did you think of Darryl's presentation? Because I know you've how he's focused on decision making in hockey IQ in a simple way and let the game teach. So go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's very in tune with how Johanny always talked, about understanding the players, and and I watched him this summer with his daughter on the ice at with you there, so I saw what he does. And he used like a lot of 3-on-3 to teach things, a few drills and this kind of stuff. And, I totally agree with what, with how he's trying to get the players to understand the game and make decisions.
Yeah.
There's so many factors, like, if I'm forechecking and the guy's 20 years younger than me, I've got to give him a little more room on the outside and not, you got to read what the other player can do and what you can do and all this kind of stuff. There's decisions all the time. There's no black and white. Like, I know Terry Johnson was really trying to get our players to really work on, tightening the gaps and, influencing right away. I think it got called cheating there, but, the influencing, so the D comes around and he sees a winger and the defense was fairly close to him, probably not going to pass to that winger then. So all of those things are, they've kind of been around all the time. I remember playing against Bob Murdoch, and every time you get a pass from the D, you look up and he's within a yard of you. He wasn't waiting back there, skating backwards. So he was doing that, forever, and pretty good player. So, yeah, I really agree. I'm really on the, really in the recruiting mode right now. I meet with 4 players to sign them this afternoon, and during this call, I just got 2 letters of intent sent to me from the Okanagan Hockey Academy, 2 really good players. And I'm pretty excited about the girl that was captain at Providence. She finished 2 years ago. She's coming to SAIT because she got a science degree, but can't really get a job with a general science degree. So she's going to take that sonography, for the ultrasound and all these kind of things. So at our, you can play 5 years in ours. So she's going to play with us. So, in the process of that, it's a flip of the coin whether they're bringing me back or not, because we didn't do very well. That's what they dismissed the whole COVID thing and nobody helping anybody, and they laid off the entire staff. So I had these good players that couldn't get into school. Nobody was absolutely helping. So really my 5, 6, 7, 8 D were now my 2, 3, 4, 5 D, and they just weren't good enough for the league. And, it's pretty tough for the forwards if they can never get a pass from the D, just rims all the time. But anyways, that's...
I want to compliment you because I'm more aware of what you had to go through in terms of the last 3 years taking over that team and the struggle of COVID and recruiting. But the fact that players want to sign with you now, they want to be a part of a program that is grounded. It does the right thing. And that's a tribute to what you're doing. And I've watched your staff, yourself, all year, and the girls. And I don't know, you might have won 1 or 2 games or 3 games and didn't make the playoffs. But the thank you card the players shared that you posted on WhatsApp is just a testament to the work you've done. And if they return and you can coach them with the staff you've got, the outcomes will look after themselves because you've got the process down. So, Michael,
I just want to say one more thing. It looks like they're going to tear our rink down. And we'd be playing at Winsport. Winsport is where Hockey Canada's offices are. They have 4 rinks there. and it's quite far from our campus, like probably a 20-minute drive.
Ah.
But
But the rink
it
on
looks like
campus
that's
is a school rink.
the what?
The rink on campus is a school rink.
Yeah, we've got like it's in the campus center, so the gyms are there. You know, the fitness places.
Yeah, but when
the
you say
pool.
tear down, you mean they're going to renovate it or they're taking it out?
I'm not quite sure. I've heard from the guy that's been there for 25 years and taking care of the rink. He told me they're going to rip it down, and the rink is like, it's a nice rink. It's just cinder block and steel, and we had 2 fantastic dressing rooms, and they redid the whole ice plant about 3-4 years ago, and it's got about 1,000 seats on one side and a big screen for the big to watch the game and a big scoreboard. It's probably the best rink around, but they didn't ask my opinion any of this. I don't know. So,
Mike, every time Darryl speaks, I think of Marty, and I'd just love to get the 2 of them on sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Marty is just all he is Roger Gorillo, right? I mean, so it's a funny, and that's why, and I love listening to Darryl stuff and all this stuff, obviously, in the exploration of what we do. But like the way I look at what USA Hockey's tried to do, all these principles exist. I mean, even the coaching education part is all about how can you be a transformational person and coach. It for the last 3 or 4 years, it hasn't been about strategy and skill development. It's all been about how do you connect with players and how do you transfer knowledge to another person so they could use it. And so, even when we say coach education, it's the families that come into it. It's the people that get into it, and they have some really crazy expectations. And I can't even say it's the people that played before. Sometimes the best people, like the best parents I have, are the ones that were high level players, and now their kids are playing. For the most part, those are my best parents. It's the ones that have never done anything in athletics or team work or knowing how to work together as a group that I have the biggest problems with. But it's like I said, I think I had probably this year might have been my hardest year coaching, and I thought it was my best year communicating. So don't know what to say, but don't know how to add the 2 up. But
well, you can only you start with your talent, and if you make it this much better, and if you've got a 8th place team, maybe you can take them to 5th place. Yeah. And if you got a 3rd place team, you can take them to 1st place, but you're not going to take an 8th place talent to 1st place. They've had a lot of years of.
Well, you have 14 years of unteaching, and it was funny because we have a lot of kids. I mean, but one of the good examples I tried to use was 2 teams we play at the end of the year. We play at the beginning of the year. Both teams we lost to at the beginning of the year. One team we beat and one team we lost by a goal. So the team that was a rated team, right, had beaten us 9-0 and 8-1. We lost to them 2-1. But we had a great game. I mean, we played great. They played great. And I didn't even get out of the rink before I got emails about how certain defensemen didn't play as much as other defensemen. I'm like, we just played the best game of the year. The whole team just literally just transformed ourselves into really playing together. And the kids had if you were to ask the kids individually, they had no idea if they played more or not. They just knew they were in the game the whole time. And it was so funny how it was like, so you can't win. At the beginning of the year, it was like, oh my God, the coach doesn't want to win. There's no development here. He doesn't want to sit the right kids to play. And then at the end of the year, when we get to a 1-goal game, it's, why are you sitting these kids? They should be playing more. And it's like, well, so again, I tend to focus on and put my effort into the kids that want the effort back. And I try to give as much as I can to the kids that want it. Right. And for the most part, it's we had a player leave this weekend's tournament. You know, the dad had the car packed already before the last game of the year, and he was driving away. And, you know, and the kid, what do you think the kid does? Kid's in the car saying, no, I want to be back here with my teammates. I don't care. Like, I want to be here with my teammates. And he, you know, car turns around, they unload the car, they check back into the hotel. And, I don't know. It's sad. It's sad where we're at. And I think it's, but at the same time, you know, it's fun to engage with the people that want to be engaged with. And that's really where I kind of found my niche down here is just keep inviting me to places that you want me to be at, and I'll show up.
Yeah.
In that regard, it's not, you know, it's great. You came close in this final game. My best season coaching, first year of football, a junior varsity team. 0-7 was my best year of coaching. Had 45 kids try out, 45 kids play. We went from 44-0 to playing in the final game, heading at halftime against the undefeated team, 15-7, but we lost the game. 47 kids didn't quit. They all got to play and they stuck together, and it was the best season ever. The most important thing is, what are they going to do? What are those kids going to be doing when they're our age or your age, Mike? You're young and you're doing good things. And I really believe that that's the best evaluation of your coaching, is the people you develop to hopefully continue playing and enjoying the game and giving back to the game. And it's really hard to look in a crystal ball and predict, but that's a good way of assessing things. And you'll hear from the players that you've influenced and impacted. And I think it's the last story I want to share is we have a fellow in Calgary. His dad has an arena named after him. He's a heart and soul person who managed a quadrant of hockey here. And his two sons played for me in Bantam. And the one son coached 4 teams to the Nationals, and he won 3 national championships. And he told me on the championships teams, I think he might have had 1 NHL player, and he played against midget teams that had 3 and 4, Chris Letang being one of them. And I'm curious to say, wonder, what are all the players from the Quebec team that he beat doing with their lives today? And I know they're probably doing great things, because regardless of how bad the experience, hockey will teach them good things. They'll cope with it and they'll roll with it. So
yeah,
they'll learn in spite of us. So Jordan, you made it.
But Wally, I got to run too. But good luck today with the coaches site.
Okay, real good.
Jordan, hello. Tom, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Hey, Jordan, where you been?
I'm all right. I was in a meeting.
I think he's back in his office. Eh?
Yeah, I'm back at school. I was in a meeting this morning, so dealing with a couple things. Sorry, I didn't get on.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to download the session and send it out. Darryl was on very early, and it all related to Darryl's concepts and application, and really the importance of engaging and questioning the players so they can develop their thinking.
Yeah.
And it was really outstanding. So the later part of it, once Darryl left, we got into the ugly part of the game, which was parenting and interference. And Darryl didn't have any solutions, but Kim did.
Oh yeah.
That part of her presentation, the mission statement exercise, which I'm doing today at 4 with the coaches site leadership staff.
Yeah.
Was the first part that Kim mentions, but she balances it with coaching by principle, and she used three terms. The first one was poise. And so if you run a practice, say it's poise. And what does poise mean? And all those things. The next one would be, could be physicality. They're focusing on puck protection, building a wall. And she used those three terms. I think I'm just trying to get them down. I might have to listen again to get the third one. But I wrote down pace, poise, and physicality. That's how she coaches. So if your practice week is about pace and tempo and speed of thinking, and speed of execution, parents understand that. It gets them out of the detail. And I think it was a brilliant way, she said, to marry the mission statement of coaching. It validates what you're doing as being effective. The kids embrace it. So she talked about one of her games. She had to coach this year, a midget double A. She'd never coached. And she came in with a simple concept of owning the blue line, owning each blue line, not letting them get out and not letting them get across. And that was all she coached. Not power play, not penalty kill, not forecheck. And they focused on that and used the terminology. And they were very successful. They lost the game by a goal, but the players were engaged. I think she's hit on something there. Trying to balance that equation, what you're there for with a mission statement, with the developmental piece of how you coach, the delivery by principles. So
The principles core values piece, Wally, that follows into what I was chatting with you about, what that Mike Gabinet, the coach at Omaha, that's Claire Drake's grandson.
yeah.
And it's the core values piece, always returning to the core values. And I think that, yeah, that's something. And when one of the things that's helped me with parents is the weekly email that goes out. It's I aim it at the players in that the communication is to the players, but I full well know that all of the parents read it because it goes to every parent's email address. And it's not getting into the nuts and bolts of what we're doing for the week, of exactly what the practice plans are, but the parents can see the practice plans because I put them all online too. But it's more of the giving the parents a little bit of that why. And I don't know. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But just the same way as I've said, you're not going to cure 16 years of enabled parenting that the kids have had. In some of those cases, you're not going to cure that 16 years of parents living vicariously through that child. And that over-invested piece that they have. So it's going to remain being a challenge, but I think, like I said to you before, that as long as the board is on the side of understanding that the coach is there for the right reasons and supporting the coach, I think it'll be good.
Well, we're all alone, Jordan.
That's okay. Well, I'll let you go, Wally, and good luck with your session this afternoon with that coach's site, and I'm sure we'll see each other tomorrow at Viney.
Yep, I'll see you there. Good, all the best to you.
All right, and practice last night was way better. They were far more engaged. They were loose, and yeah, I think they're going to be ready.
I got a question of the three words: pace, poise, physicality. Your practice, did it have a focus of some of those things or all of those things?
I think all of those, because we are using the compete and the pace, of course,
Yeah.
and the poise piece Yeah, I would say that's one that we would put into the engagement or that focus piece as much as anything.
Yeah.
The poise to me would mean focus, like
Yeah.
having a focus, having a purpose of
Yeah.
understanding that why are we there, and playing into that. So yeah.
Okay. Well, Jordan, thanks for catching on. Better late than never. And
So all right, have a great day, Wally.
okay, take care.
Bye now.
Bye bye.